In the heart of a merciless Chicago tempest, a man of strong build and humble means witnessed a young window washer battling for his life high above the city streets. Despite his family's desperate pleas, he left the safety of his home, driven by an unshakable resolve to save him. Fast forward 10 years and the boy, now a powerful CEO, returns. His next action will leave a mark on your soul. Before we delve into this incredible saga, let us know where you're tuning in from. Your insights are invaluable to us. There are storms that do more than merely dismantle homes and tear branches from trees. They are cataclysmic events that can reshape destinies in an instant. This is a tale of one such storm, a force of nature that forever bound a black family, a young white boy, and a community. It all began on a late afternoon in September 2014 as a menacing sky descended upon Chicago. Marcus Williams, a man in his early 40s with sharp, observant eyes, stood by the window of his unassuming fourth-floor apartment. He watched as the day's light gave way to an ominous twilight, the clouds churning with unnatural speed. An unsettling feeling, one he'd come to trust after years of navigating an unpredictable world, settled in his gut. In the kitchen, Sarah, his wife of 13 years, moved with quiet purpose, sealing food and checking their water supply. Her hands were steady, yet her dark eyes, which briefly met Marcus's, betrayed a deep-seated anxiety. A silent understanding passed between them. They were prepared, but they both knew readiness could only go so far. "It's getting worse, isn't it?" Sarah's voice, though controlled, carried a tight strain. Marcus simply nodded, his gaze returning to the television. A young reporter, shouting over the blustering winds, delivered a terrifying message. "Residents of Cook County, seek immediate shelter. Wind speeds are expected to exceed 80 miles per hour. This is a life-threatening storm. I repeat, a life-threatening storm." Little Emma, a fragile 8-year-old, clung to Marcus's side, her small hand gripping his arm. Her eyes, wide and shimmering with unshed tears, looked up at him. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" Her voice trembled, a vessel of childhood innocence and trust. Marcus knelt, his hands gently on her slender shoulders. His gaze met her frightened eyes, and his voice was a rock of reassurance. "We're going to be more than okay, baby girl. I promise your mom and I will not let anything bad happen to you." He shot another powerful, affirming look at Sarah, a silent vow to protect his family at all costs. Rising, Marcus moved with a renewed sense of purpose, his muscles taut. He secured the shutters and fastened wooden planks across their large windows. Outside, the wind howled with a newfound ferocity, bending trees almost to their breaking point, their leaves shredded into a chaotic maelstrom. As he secured the final latch, a thunderous clap cracked above them, shaking the apartment's very foundation. The lights flickered ominously. Emma shrieked and buried her face in Sarah's hip. Sarah, her own heart racing, gently stroked her daughter's curly hair, whispering soothing words. "Marcus, please hurry," Sarah urged, her composed facade finally beginning to crack. She pulled Emma closer, a protective shield against the building storm. Rain began to hammer the apartment with a violent intensity. Marcus paused for a beat, his breath catching, a terrible realization dawning on him. He was just a man, a father, and he felt painfully vulnerable. He clenched his fists, forcing strength back into his bones. The wind's scream almost drowned out the faint, wailing sirens in the streets below. He compelled himself to remain calm, to be the unyielding anchor his family needed. Adrenaline surged, sharpening his senses. Driven by an unexplainable instinct, he moved back to the window, needing to witness the chaos. Through the sheets of rain and the deepening gloom, his eyes caught a glimpse of something. A shadow, a human form suspended mid-air by a slender cable. His heart leaped into his throat. Leaning closer to the glass, he squinted through the storm's fury. Disbelief quickly morphed into pure horror. Battered relentlessly by the wind, a young man in window-cleaning gear dangled precariously above the street, clinging to a safety cable. Fierce gusts swung him wildly, his limbs scrambling desperately for purchase, his face a mask of abject terror. Marcus's breath quickened, the roar of his pulse drowning out everything else. In that very moment, Marcus knew the storm had brought more than just devastation. It had presented him with a choice that would define him forever. As the storm reached its zenith, the entire city seemed to shrink inward, its inhabitants retreating behind locked doors. Rain hammered against the buildings, and the 80 miles per hour winds transformed the streets into a chaotic vortex. Streetlights flickered erratically, casting distorted, dancing shadows on the deserted sidewalks below. It was as if Chicago held its breath, awaiting the storm's final devastating blow. High above the empty street, suspended by a slender safety cable, Tyler Johnson, an 18-year-old hardened by years of labor, gripped the cable with a desperate, white-knuckled strength. His body swung violently in the howling gale. Rain like sharp needles stung his face, and his drenched clothes clung heavily to his trembling frame. His eyes, half blinded by the relentless downpour, strained to maintain his fragile grip. This was meant to be his final job of the day, a quick window-washing gig he'd eagerly accepted for the extra cash needed to pay bills and buy medicine for his sick mother. He hadn't anticipated the storm's sudden and savage arrival. It had consumed him like a ravenous beast, leaving him stranded, vulnerable, and terrifyingly alone. Below, from the relative safety of his apartment, Marcus Williams watched Tyler's perilous struggle in real time. Marcus's stomach knotted painfully, his heart thundering in his chest. The stark reality was undeniable. If someone didn't act immediately, the young man would not survive the storm's wrath. "Marcus, step away from the window." Sarah's voice cracked with fear as she felt the torment gripping her husband. She rushed to him, grabbing his arm as if afraid the wind could snatch him away. "We can't help him. It's too dangerous." Marcus turned to her, his usually calm eyes now shadowed with anguish. "Sarah," he pleaded softly, his voice barely audible over the storm, "that boy is going to die out there unless someone does something." "Daddy, don't go outside," Emma wailed, her small hands clutching his shirt in a panic. Her tiny body shook with sobs, her face pale with terror. "Please, Daddy, please stay." Marcus knelt again, holding Emma's trembling face in his large, powerful hands, a deep ache spreading through his chest. His voice was steady but weighted with the gravity of his decision. "Baby, Daddy can't let someone die right in front of me. I promise I'll be careful. Stay with Mom, okay?" Emma's eyes widened, filling with fresh tears, her voice cracking. "But Daddy, it's too scary. Don't leave us." Marcus hugged her fiercely, feeling her fragile heartbeat flutter against his chest. He looked up at Sarah, their eyes locking in a silent agony, both knowing this choice would change their lives forever. Sarah reached out, her hand gently touching Marcus's shoulder, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Marcus, if you step outside that door, I know." Marcus interrupted her softly, his jaw set with resolve. "I know. But I can't live with myself if I let that boy fall." As Marcus strode purposefully toward the apartment door, he could hear the muffled sounds of his neighbors barricading themselves inside, securing their homes against the storm. He knew no one else had seen Tyler, that no one else was coming to help. The burden of this choice rested squarely on his shoulders alone. With a deep, steadying breath, Marcus's hand found the cold doorknob. He paused for a single heartbeat, wrestling with the immense risk. Memories of Sarah's embrace, Emma's laughter, and quiet family dinners flooded his mind, desperate pleas for self-preservation. But through the whispers of fear, Marcus's inner voice rang out with stubborn conviction. "I cannot let a child die in front of me." With one final glance at his family, Marcus opened the door. The furious wind exploded into the apartment, slamming against him with a shocking force that nearly knocked him off his feet. Rain lashed at his face like icy needles. The door strained wildly against its hinges as he fought to close it behind him, sealing his family off from the tempest. Stepping onto the slick landing, Marcus braced himself against the relentless gale, gripping the stair rail tightly as the powerful gusts threatened to tear him loose. Each step down felt impossibly heavy, his heart pounding in rhythm with the storm. In the distance, Tyler swung helplessly. Marcus focused his strength and courage on the task, his eyes locked on Tyler's desperate struggle. His breath came in short, sharp gasps, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Each gust was a challenge to his very survival, yet he pressed on, fueled by willpower and unwavering resolve. High above, Tyler felt his grip slipping. His fingers, numb with cold, slid on the wet rope. His lungs ached with each desperate gasp of rain-filled air. Fear clawed mercilessly at his chest, a profound loneliness washing over him as he realized no one would find him in time. This was his end. Alone. Forgotten. Consumed by the storm. But then through his blurry waterlogged eyes, Tyler saw movement below, a figure battling the wind, fighting its very force. A faint spark of hope ignited within him, a fragile flame against the crushing despair. Someone had seen him. Someone had dared to venture out when no one else would. Tyler clung to that hope, gripping the cable tighter, praying that whoever it was would reach him before it was too late. Below, Marcus stumbled forward, his body battered by each merciless gust, barely holding his footing. His muscles screamed in protest, his mind racing against the ticking seconds. But despite every obstacle, one thing was certain: he wouldn't turn back. Not now, not when a young life dangled so precariously. He took another determined step, the wind trying to lift him from the ground, his resolve unbroken. Marcus knew this was just the beginning of the fight, but it was a fight he was committed to winning with his life. He moved steadily onward, one harrowing step at a time, into the heart of the storm. The scene transitions to the calm after the storm. The sound of rain gives way to a gentle, quiet hum. Marcus leaned heavily against the apartment door, the wind's roar still echoing in his ears as he struggled for breath. Water dripped from his soaked clothes, forming glistening puddles on the old hardwood. He blinked, trying to steady himself, his heart hammering with adrenaline and relief. Beside him, Tyler stood silently, shivering uncontrollably, his eyes wide with the disbelief that he was safe. Sarah rushed over, a thick, well-worn blanket in her hands, which she wrapped gently around Tyler's trembling shoulders. Her eyes, filled with a mix of compassion and lingering fear, searched his face. "You're safe now," she said softly, her voice warm and reassuring as she guided him to the warm sofa near the window. Emma approached cautiously, her big brown eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and genuine concern. "Who is he, Mama?" she whispered, her gaze fixed on Tyler's pale, exhausted face. Sarah knelt, placing a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. "He's our guest, sweetheart. Daddy brought him inside so he wouldn't get hurt. Let's make him feel comfortable, okay?" Emma nodded, her small face serious. She carefully climbed onto the sofa beside Tyler, offering him a gentle smile that spoke more than words ever could. Tyler's chest tightened at the gesture, unaccustomed to such kindness from strangers. Marcus watched from across the room, deeply moved by Emma's effortless warmth, proud and humbled by his daughter's compassion. The family gathered quietly around Tyler in the soft, golden glow of a lamp, a beacon of resilience against the lingering darkness outside. Marcus, exhausted, sank into an armchair opposite the sofa, his eyes thoughtfully studying Tyler, who still trembled slightly. Marcus saw more than just physical fatigue. He saw a deeper hurt, an emotional burden weighing on the young man. Sarah gently examined Tyler's hands, noting the painful scrapes and bruises. "Let me take care of these," she murmured softly, retrieving a first aid kit. Tyler tried to protest, his pale cheeks coloring with embarrassment, but Sarah simply shook her head. "You need this, sweetheart. Let us help you." Tyler nodded silently, surrendering to her care. Each gentle touch of antiseptic and bandage felt foreign but profoundly comforting. As Sarah worked, Marcus observed the subtle changes in Tyler's expression, the guarded uncertainty slowly giving way to a hesitant acceptance of care he'd clearly not known for a long time. Sarah soon returned from the kitchen with a simple, nourishing meal: warm soup, bread, and steaming mugs of tea. Tyler stared at the food, swallowing hard as a lump of emotion rose in his throat. He glanced at Marcus, who offered an encouraging nod. Dinner passed in a comfortable silence, filled with small, meaningful gestures. Emma occasionally looked up at Tyler, captivated by this quiet, gentle guest. Tyler ate slowly, savoring this rare moment of warmth and normalcy. Afterward, Marcus showed Tyler to a modest but welcoming guest room. Tyler lay quietly under the fresh sheets, staring at the ceiling, exhaustion fighting a restlessness that refused to let him sleep. Hours passed, the quiet house filled only with the faint hum of the wind, now much calmer but still a reminder of the night's chaos. Finally, unable to contain his thoughts, Tyler quietly rose and made his way to the living room, surprised to find Marcus still there, sitting in the dim lamplight, his eyes open and thoughtful. Marcus looked up, offering a gentle, knowing smile. "Couldn't sleep either, huh?" Tyler shook his head, stepping closer. He sat across from Marcus, gathering his courage. "Why did you save me?" he finally asked, his voice raw and vulnerable. Marcus studied the boy, sensing the depth behind the question. Because no one deserves to face a storm like that alone, he answered simply, his sincerity carrying the weight of genuine compassion. But it feels like you've been facing storms alone for a long time now, haven't you? Tyler dropped his gaze to his bruised hands, unable to meet Marcus's patient eyes. My mom got sick a few years ago. Cancer, he began quietly, his voice trembling. Dad left when I was 12. After that, it was just us. Things got harder every year. The bills piled up and I had to quit school my senior year to find work. Window cleaning was the best job I could get, even though it scared me every single day. Tyler's voice cracked, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his confession. Marcus listened patiently, his heart aching for the boy whose burdens were far heavier than he had imagined. When Tyler fell silent, Marcus leaned forward, his voice calm but powerful. You don't have to carry all of that alone anymore, Tyler. You're here now, safe. We'll figure this out together. Tyler slowly lifted his eyes, searching Marcus's face for any hint of pity or false promises. He found only genuine understanding and unshakable sincerity. Something deep within him began to shift, the walls of fear and isolation he'd built over the years finally starting to crumble. Marcus reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Tyler's shoulder. You're not alone anymore, Tyler. This family has room for you. Whatever it takes will help you find your footing again. Tyler's eyes filled with tears, relief, gratitude, and disbelief swirling within him. His throat tightened, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. Thank you, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion he was no longer ashamed to reveal. Thank you for everything. Marcus nodded warmly. You don't have to thank me, he replied gently. Just remember from now on you're not alone. My family is here for you and will always have room for you. The scene shifts to a peaceful morning after the storm with the sun breaking through the clouds. As dawn broke, a gentle sun filtered through the remnants of dark clouds, painting the Chicago skyline in soft, hopeful pastels. The streets, once littered with debris, now buzzed with activity as neighbors emerged cautiously, exchanging hushed conversations of relief and gratitude. Marcus stood at the apartment window, a steaming mug of coffee in his hand, silently observing the world return to life. Just beyond his view, a cluster of news vans had gathered, their bright logos a stark contrast to the quiet morning streets. Reporters with microphones navigated the fallen branches, seeking stories of heroism and survival. The attention was unexpected and uncomfortable, but Marcus understood its inevitability. A grainy surveillance video from a nearby building, which showed Marcus fighting the powerful winds to save Tyler, had gone viral overnight. It had traveled across social media, reaching millions and transforming his simple act of humanity into a viral phenomenon. Sarah quietly joined Marcus, her hand slipping onto his shoulder. Her eyes followed his gaze toward the media below. Are you ready for this? She asked softly, her voice calm and protective. Marcus sighed, setting his coffee down. I didn't do it for this attention, he murmured, shaking his head. Any decent person would have done the same. I know, Sarah replied, a smile filled with quiet pride. But maybe it's good for people to see this. Maybe they need to be reminded of what kindness looks like. A hesitant knock at the door interrupted their moment. Emma rushed forward eagerly, her face bright with excitement. Marcus opened the door to a young reporter with earnest eyes. Mr. Williams, I'm sorry to disturb you so early, she began. But your story has touched so many people. Would you be willing to share your perspective? Marcus hesitated, then slowly nodded. Soon, standing humbly before the cameras and microphones, he recounted the events of the previous night, his voice steady and genuine as he spoke of Tyler's bravery and the importance of community. You're being called a hero, a reporter called out. How does it feel to know your actions saved a young man's life? Marcus paused, glancing at Sarah, whose gentle gaze encouraged him. I don't consider myself a hero, he said clearly and sincerely. Any good person would have done what I did. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. The media dubbed the Williams family heroes. Their image splashed across screens and headlines. But Marcus remained quietly humble, redirecting all praise toward community strength. Meanwhile, with proper medical care, Tyler's condition improved significantly. His minor injuries healed quickly. Marcus and Sarah visited him regularly, bringing home-cooked meals and conversations that built a deep, lasting trust. The bond between Tyler and the family grew stronger, rooted in mutual gratitude and newfound respect. When Tyler was well enough to leave the hospital, Marcus personally drove him home. Tyler's small, modest house looked worn but resilient, much like its occupants. Inside, Tyler's mother, frail but fiercely determined, embraced her son, tears of relief streaming down her face. Quietly, without fanfare, Marcus and Sarah offered financial help, assisting Tyler in re-enrolling to finish high school. Initially, Tyler protested, uncomfortable with such generosity. But Marcus insisted gently yet firmly. "Son, you don't owe us anything. Just live your life right. That's all the repayment we need." Tyler promised earnestly that he would make their kindness count, vowing never to forget the family who had rescued him not just physically but emotionally from the devastating storm. As weeks turned into months, the media's attention faded. Marcus and his family quietly returned to their daily lives. The storm became a distant memory, a powerful but fading chapter. Marcus often reflected on the profound significance of their encounter with Tyler, a single moment that had transformed strangers into family. He found comfort knowing their connection would endure long after the world had forgotten their story. Months slipped by and the neighborhood healed, its scars fading beneath fresh paint and newly planted trees. Tyler continued to visit, his presence seamlessly woven into their routine, always bringing a quiet gratitude and gentle optimism. But eventually, even his visits became less frequent as he dedicated himself to building a promising future, driven by the quiet strength and resilience he had learned from Marcus. Life returned to a new normal. Emma grew taller, Sarah continued to nurture those around her, and Marcus resumed his familiar rhythms of work and family. Yet Marcus knew that something fundamental had shifted inside them all. Their hearts had been expanded, enriched by a shared experience that connected them forever. And though the public had moved on, Marcus knew the memories and bonds forged in the storm would remain etched in their souls. And so life continued, quietly ordinary yet beautifully meaningful. Seasons changed, years passed, and the world moved on, unaware that beneath the surface of an everyday life lay a legacy born from 5 minutes of bravery, kindness, and compassion. Life, as it always does, simply went on for another 10 years. The scene returns to the present day with a soft, melodic score. A decade had quietly slipped by since that unforgettable night, gently transforming the lives it had touched. Marcus Williams stood on the porch of his modest but comfortable home in a quiet, tree-lined Chicago suburb. The morning air was soft, filled with the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming lilacs. He breathed deeply, savoring the peace he'd worked so hard to build. Inside, laughter echoed warmly. Emma, now 18, moved excitedly around the kitchen, preparing coffee and toast. Marcus watched her, a tender pride swelling in his chest. His daughter had grown into a beautiful, strong, and kind young woman, ready to step confidently into the next chapter of her life. Today was special. Emma had been accepted into her dream university, thanks to a mysterious scholarship from an anonymous donor. Despite their curiosity, Marcus and Sarah had never discovered the benefactor's identity, yet gratitude filled their hearts whenever they considered the generosity shown to their family. As Marcus stood lost in thought, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb, its polished exterior gleaming in the morning sun. A tall, sharply dressed young man emerged, walking toward him with quiet confidence. Marcus squinted, his heart quickening as a gentle surprise dawned on him. "Tyler." Marcus's voice was filled with warmth and disbelief. Tyler Johnson, now a successful 28-year-old entrepreneur, stopped just before Marcus, a quiet, humble smile on his face. "Hello, Marcus," he said gently, his voice rich with maturity and gratitude. "It's been a long time." Marcus stepped forward, embracing Tyler warmly. A flood of memories washed over him. Rain-soaked nights, shared meals, hushed conversations. He stepped back, his hands resting on Tyler's broad shoulders, a clear sense of pride in his gentle eyes as he took in the man Tyler had become. "You've done well," Marcus said softly, nodding approvingly. "We saw your company on the news, Johnson Tech Solutions, right? Quite an achievement." Tyler smiled modestly, his eyes shining with pride and sincerity. "I owe it all to you and Sarah. You taught me the importance of courage, kindness, and integrity. I never forgot it." Marcus smiled, shaking his head. "We only did what any decent person would have done." You did the rest yourself. Tyler glanced toward the house, noticing Emma and Sarah watching from the doorway, their faces filled with joyful surprise. The scholarship, he said quietly, his voice gentle but firm. It was my way of finally saying thank you. Marcus turned to Emma, who stood with wide, astonished eyes. Tears welled up as the realization hit her. She approached slowly, her voice trembling. You gave me the scholarship? Tyler nodded gently, stepping closer to face her. I remember how much your family helped me when I needed it most. This was the only way I knew how to repay your kindness. Emma hugged Tyler tightly, a mix of gratitude, disbelief and happiness swirling within her. Marcus and Sarah exchanged a quiet glance, their hearts swelling with profound satisfaction. Marcus's curiosity had given way to quiet awe. The full circle of kindness was perfectly complete. The scene fades to a school auditorium, filled with the gentle hum of conversation. Later that evening, Tyler stood before an audience at Emma's school, invited to speak at a small ceremony honoring scholarship recipients. The hum softened as he approached the podium, his presence commanding quiet respect. Marcus, Sarah, and Emma sat together, filled with anticipation. Tyler began calmly, clearly recounting his story. He spoke of a young man lost to despair, saved by a single act of courageous compassion during a raging storm 10 years prior. His voice, rich with emotion, spoke of Marcus's bravery, Sarah's tenderness, and Emma's innocent warmth. The audience sat spellbound, hearts moved by the power of his story, tears flowing freely. Marcus felt Sarah's hand softly grasping his, their fingers intertwining, sharing a silent pride in the remarkable journey Tyler had taken. Tyler concluded quietly but firmly, his voice resonating through the room. That night, Marcus taught me something I've carried every day since. Kindness is never small, never insignificant. It echoes through lives, transforming them forever. I stand here tonight because one man refused to let me fall alone. The applause began quietly, building into a powerful, heartfelt ovation that filled the auditorium. Marcus smiled, his heart filled with gentle satisfaction, understanding the depth of Tyler's journey and the profound ripple effects of a single courageous act. Outside, beneath a twilight sky painted with stars, Tyler stood with the family, savoring a quiet moment before his departure. Thank you for tonight, Tyler, Marcus said gently, his voice heavy with sincerity. Thank you for reminding us all what's truly important. Tyler shook his head softly, his eyes warm and earnest. I owed you everything, Marcus. This was the least I could do. Marcus squeezed Tyler's shoulder gently, smiling quietly, his eyes shining with gratitude and contentment. You've repaid us many times over, son. Now go and keep living a good life. That's all we ever wanted. Tyler nodded gently, accepting Marcus's words with humility and respect. After warm hugs and quiet farewells, he climbed back into his car, slowly driving away into the peaceful night. Marcus stood with Sarah and Emma, watching until the taillights disappeared. Life had truly come full circle, a journey defined not by grand heroics, but by quiet courage, humble generosity, and the powerful bonds formed through simple acts of kindness. And Marcus understood profoundly, standing beneath a vast and endless sky, that kindness, like love, was never lost or forgotten. It simply moved forward, quietly shaping the world, one life at a time. A final, powerful note plays as the screen fades to a call to action. Join us to share more meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.